Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are your hosts, Cypher.
And Castia.
And together, well, we're the NPCs. We're here to guide you through this pile of source material. Find those key insights.
And maybe a few surprises along the way.
Definitely. Psy Guy's back there, wrangling all the research, keeping us somewhat on track.
He gets his own solo episode sometimes, gives us NPCs a much-needed break.
He really does.
Okay,
so, audience. Today, we are plunging into something, well, pretty wild. A hypothetical clash of titans.
We're drawing from a detailed analysis here, looking at a theoretical fight. Two figures, completely different fictional universes.
That's right. This deep dive, we're unpacking a potential face-off between Lady Death from Chaos Comics
and Kaguya Ōtsutsuki from the Naruto saga. Big names.
Huge. So our mission today is really to unpack the core insights from this specific analysis we've got. We're looking at their origins, their powers, key abilities.
Significant feats, yeah, potential weaknesses too, and importantly, understanding the reasoning behind the source's prediction for how this, well, epic battle might go down.
And it's tough, right? Comparing characters from such different places. You got dark fantasy demons
versus shonen manga, chakra, nature-based energy. The systems themselves are just fundamentally different. They play by totally separate rules.
Exactly. And our source analysis, it actually acknowledges that right up front.
Yeah.
It tries to navigate it by focusing on, conceptual strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and how their unique abilities might interact. It's not trying to slap a universal power level on them.
Right. Less about a number, more about the nature of their powers, the scale, the potential counters, vulnerabilities, stuff like that.
So we'll look at each one individually first, lay out their profile based on what the source says.
And then we'll get into the analysis of how they might actually clash in combat and what the source concludes.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, before we really dive in, audience, if you hear any weird static or glitches,
please bear with us. Sometimes talking about beings this powerful, it messes with the equipment. Dimensional echoes, maybe?
Or maybe Psy Guy just spilled coffee on the dimensional stabilizer again.
Wouldn't be the first time. Okay, let's dive in.
All right, let's unpack this. Starting with Lady Death. Queen of Hell, Chaos, Comics. Where does the source say she comes from? What's that origin tell us?
Well, her origin is pretty intense, really transformative. She started as a mortal woman, Hope, back in medieval Sweden.
Hope? Okay.
Yeah, but she was accused of witchcraft, betrayed, facing execution, the whole grim package.
Oh, wow.
And in that final moment, absolute desperation, she utters this incantation, offers her soul to summon a demon, basically begging for salvation.
And that worked, sort of.
It plunged her straight into hell, fundamentally changed her. Once she got there, she got caught up in this brutal civil war.
Right.
And the analysis really highlights that journey from, persecuted peasant to this incredibly formidable warrior. She allied with an exiled craftsman, got powerful weapons forged.
And eventually led an uprising against Lucifer himself.
Exactly. Defeating Lucifer, claiming the throne as the new queen of hell. The source cites that as her defining achievement, really. Instantly puts her at the top tier in the Chaos universe.
So that transformation is key. Explains the ruthlessness, the immense power.
Absolutely central. Her power stems directly from that whole infernal connection. Hell-derived magic.
The source calls it black magic, or sometimes omnipower, right? What is that actually, this omnipower, practically speaking?
The source describes it as the core of what she can do. It gives her this formidable Shift X rank. That's a big deal in the Chaos power scaling. Well, any spell probably means huge versatility rather than literal omnipotence.
Right, not everything ever.
Exactly. The analysis suggests it means mastery over the vast magical spectrum within her universe, which operates totally differently from something like chakra.
So it lets her do what kind of things?
Devastating offensive magic, conjure hellfire, create illusions, and potentially adapt, like conjure specific effects to counter different threats.
And the scale of this. You mentioned feats earlier. The source gives examples, right? Gives us a sense of her destructive capability.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Her offensive magic feats, they include defeating entities like genocide.
Genocide?
Yeah, stated to be capable of destroying stars, striking with the force of 12 exploding galaxies.
Okay, wow. 12 exploding galaxies.
Eating an opponent on that scale, that immediately puts Lady Death in a cosmic tier. Sets a baseline for her destructive output.
And that's not all?
Nope. She can casually slaughter thousands of chaos. Angels and those guys have considerable power themselves. She's even fought entities scaled to be like Odin level.
So beyond just slinking spells, what else does she have in her toolkit, according to the source?
Well, she commands death and undeath, resurrection, necromancy, can raise huge armies of the dead.
Makes sense for the Queen of Hell.
Right. She's also got superhuman physicality, rated amazing for fighting and agility, incredible strength and endurance.
Her defense.
Amazing protection from physical and energy attacks through her skin armor. Plus, incredible regeneration. She can recover from some serious damage.
And she's immortal. Resistant to poisons, diseases.
Presented that way, yeah. Immortal, resistant to toxins and diseases.
And her weapon, that classic scythe.
The Deathbringer scythe. Yeah, the source makes it clear it's not just for show. It can handle and channel her immense energies.
Drain energy, too. Cut through illusions.
Exactly. A powerful tool capable of reaping even really strong supernatural beings.
So her overall skills. What else does the analysis list?
Cosmic awareness, like a high-level understanding of space and the universe. Significant leadership skills, obviously, from leading armies, and proficiency in various combat arts.
Defeating Lucifer, conquering hell, fighting galaxy-level threats. I mean, she sounds almost unbeatable. Does the source analysis point out any weaknesses, anything that might be relevant here?
It does touch on potential vulnerabilities, yeah. Though they aren't quite as detailed as her strengths, maybe.
Like what?
There's Lucifer's curse. Theoretically keeps her off Earth while she's alive. But how useful that is in this kind of fight is debatable.
Probably not very.
Probably not. Her past as Hope, her human origin, is noted as a potential vulnerable core. Suggests it could be a conceptual weak point.
But could Kaguya realistically exploit that, given Lady Death's established ruthlessness?
Unlikely through just taunts, yeah. Seems like a long shot.
What about the magic itself? Can it be stopped? Countered?
That's interesting. The source points out that while it's not often used against her, other powerful magic users in the Chaos universe have been shown to be drained of their powers.
Ah, okay. So that raises a possibility.
A potential vulnerability, yeah. If an opponent had the specific ability to absorb or negate non-chakra magic, that's a huge what-if we need to explore later.
And her immortality, is it absolute?
It's described as CL-1000. The source clarifies that usually means extreme resilience, agelessness tied to her power level.
But not conceptually immune to death itself.
Right. She can be harmed. Theoretically destroyed by enough power or specific effects, like that potential magic drain we just mentioned.
Okay, so incredibly powerful, versatile, cosmic conqueror.
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, vulnerable to power nullification or specific conceptual attacks depending on the matchup. A lot rides on how her unique magic interacts.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears. Let's look at her potential opponent. Kaguya Ōtsutsuki, the cosmic power she wields through chakra.
Kaguya, right?
Yeah.
Figure of myth, cosmic power in Naruto, the celestial matriarch, progenitor of chakra itself, basically.
Pretty much. She arrived on Earth ages ago. And in this pivotal moment, she ate the fruit from the god tree, became the first person to ever wield chakra.
And that changed everything for that world, didn't it?
Fundamentally. Led to humanity eventually using chakra. She was seen as a goddess for a while, though her methods became tyrannical.
Which led to her being sealed away by her own sons.
Precisely. Hagoromo and Hamura. So her power is absolutely tied to chakra and her unique eye techniques, the dojutsu.
As the progenitor, her chakra reserves must be immense.
Near limitless, basically. Unparalleled mastery over it. Her main powers come from her dojutsu, the Rin Sharingan on her forehead, that grants god-tier abilities.
Like the infinite psyguyorami, that planet-wide illusion.
Yeah, and crucially, interdimensional travel. She also has the Byakugan. Near 360 vision, X-ray vision, can see chakra pathways. Enhanced perception that cuts through most tricks.
Okay, what about her offensive power? The source mentions some terrifying ones.
Oh, definitely terrifying. The analysis calls out the all-killing ash bones.
Ash bones. Sounds bad.
It's lethal! A disintegration technique. Turns targets to ash, crumbles them away, and it seems to bypass conventional regeneration.
Oof. That's a problem for someone who regenerates.
Big problem. Then there's the expansive truth-seeking ball. A massive orb, all 5 nature transformations, plus yin-yang release.
And the scale on that.
The source notes it can destroy and recreate entire dimensions. Scaling suggests potential destructive power, maybe start a galaxy cluster level, puts it firmly in that cosmic tier of destruction.
So potentially comparable destructive power, at least in scale.
Potentially, yeah. Different mechanisms, but comparable scale is suggested. She also has chakra absorption and manipulation. Key ability for the progenitor.
Meaning she can just suck up chakra from others.
Pretty much limitlessly, yeah. And use powerful techniques like the 80 Gods vacuum attack. Fists made of chakra.
And her spatial abilities. changing the battlefield.
Yes, Manaka, that's a huge one. Powerful dimensional manipulation instantly shifts herself, others, big chunks of the environment to one of her personal dimensions.
Ice worlds, acid lakes, lava.
All that. The analysis highlights it as a potent battlefield removal tool, or BFR. Lets her control the fight's location, potentially separate opponents, disorient them.
Plus, high-level regeneration, flight, telepathy can turn into the Ten-Tails monster.
Yep, all part of the package. A monstrous entity of pure chakra.
What about her actual feats? The source mentions her fighting her sons and later Team 7.
Right. Her history includes pacifying a war-torn world after eating the fruit, ended an era of conflict basically by herself.
Impressive start.
Then later, battled her sons Hagoromo and Hamura, who had 6 paths powers. Shows her immense power, even relative to other god-tier figures in her own universe.
But the most detailed fight analysis comes from her battle with Team 7. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Obito.
That's the one the analysis focuses on most. That's where she really showcased the whole arsenal. Dimensional shifting, the lethal ash bones, the power of the expansive truth-seeking ball, god-tier stuff.
Okay, she sounds incredibly formidable too, almost unstoppable in her context.
Yeah.
What are the potential weaknesses or flaws the source points out for Kaguya?
This is where the source notes some debate among analysts. Her combat experience and tactical skill are often questioned.
Really? Even after fighting her sons in Team 7?
Well, while she fought powerful opponents, some analyses suggest she can sometimes fight almost like a child, just relying on overwhelming power, not much strategic nuance, especially against new or unexpected threats.
Interesting. Like she lacks adaptability.
The source suggests her millennia of isolation might contribute to that, relying on raw power over complex tactics. Though other interpretations do acknowledge her skill against Team 7, who were highly skilled, it's debated.
And emotionally. Any vulnerabilities there?
The source brings up emotional instability. Her obsession with reclaiming all chakra, her documented outbursts during that final battle, suggests potential psychological weak spots a cunning opponent might exploit.
And the Manaka, the dimension shifting. Any drawbacks?
There's one potential drawback noted. Targets stay in the same relative position to her when she shifts. Meaning if someone's right next to her when she shifts dimensions, they just come along for the ride. It's not a guaranteed way to separate everyone.
Okay, good tactical note. And her ultimate defeat in Naruto.
Susceptibility to sealing. That's how she was beaten. A powerful sealing jujutsu performed by Naruto and Sasuke. The source notes this is her most documented vulnerability.
So a key question is, does Lady Death have anything like a sealing jujutsu that would work on Kaguya, given Kaguya's specific chakra nature?
Exactly. Sealing jutsu often needs specific energy setups or conceptual understanding. It's a big question mark. And crucially, her powers are fundamentally tied to chakra.
Right.
This source points out, while she can absorb any technique she encounters within her universe's rules...
Does that literally include non-chakra magic? Like Lady Death's omnipower?
That is the critical unknown. If her absorption only works on chakra, Lady Death's main attacks might just bypass that key defense entirely.
Which would be a massive advantage for Lady Death.
Huge. Okay, so we have these two incredibly powerful beings, vastly different power systems, unique reality-bending abilities, hacks, as they're often called.
Lady Death, hell magic, maybe cosmic omnipower, proven conqueror, Kaguya, chakra mastery, god-tier eyes, huge destructive power, instant dimension hopping.
Yeah.
How does the source even start comparing them? Predicting a matchup.
That's the core of the analysis, right? Trying to bridge that gap between universes. And how their unique hacks abilities interact is absolutely pivotal. Raw power alone might not decide it.
And the biggest question mark, like we keep saying, seems to be that magic versus chakra thing.
It really is the central enigma the source wrestles with. Can Kaguya's ability to absorb chakra and ninjutsu actually affect Lady Death's omnipower?
It presents this dilemma, right? If Kaguya's absorption is strictly limited to chakra-based stuff from her world,
then Lady Death's magic could just sail past Kaguya's main defense. Her absorption ability becomes useless against Lady Death's primary attacks. That gives Lady Death a massive advantage, negates one of Kaguya's core tools.
But conversely, if Kaguya's claim of absorbing any technique is taken literally, universally,
then she could potentially neutralize Lady Death's main power source, turn the whole fight on its head. The source flags this as the single biggest unknown variable. There's just no way to be certain based on the source material from either side.
Okay, then there's the whole dimensional warfare angle. Kaguya's Manaka, instant battlefield control, BFR potential.
Definitely. She could just drop Lady Death into an acid dimension
What?
or lava instantly.
But the source notes Lady Death is, well, the Queen of Hell, a dimension herself, and she has cosmic awareness.
Right. That implies a high level of experience with navigating, maybe even manipulating different dimensions.
So the analysis suggests that experience might make her resistant to just being dumped somewhere. She might not be easily disoriented.
Or even capable of countering it, maybe escaping the dimension or pulling Kaguya into her domain. Hell, where Lady Death's power might be boosted, it's another complex interaction.
What about those lethal attacks that bypass normal defenses? Kaguya's all-killing ash bones. You said it bypasses regeneration.
A terrifying ability absolutely needs considering. The question the source raises is, could Lady Death's CL-1000 endurance, her magic skin armor, her powerful infernal regeneration, could they withstand it, negate it, recover from it?
Could her Omni power conjure a specific counterspell or barrier?
That's the uncertainty again. Depends entirely on how versatile that Omni power truly is. Can she just whip up the perfect defense on the fly?
And on the flip side, does Lady Death have something similar?
Well, her implied soul-destroying properties, tied to her being Queen of Hell, ruling over death, that poses a potential existential threat to Kaguya if it can bypass her defenses. Since Kaguya's physical form is tied to her chakra and the God Tree.
The soul angle. Interesting. And Kaguya has the infinite Tsukuyomi for mind soul attacks.
A planet-scale genjutsu, traps souls in illusion. Huge range. However, the source rates Lady Death's psyche very highly that shift X again.
And her history as Queen of Hell ruling souls.
Strongly suggests immense mental and soul resistance, far beyond a normal person. Her necromancy and dominion over hell also implies she might have soul manipulation abilities of her own.
Though the analysis doesn't specify those as direct combat attacks against someone like Kaguya.
Not explicitly detailed in that way, no. More about her domain.
Okay, strategy. We mentioned Kaguya's debated tactical skill. How does Lady Death stack up there?
The source puts significant weight on this aspect. Lady Death's history. Proven conqueror, defeated Lucifer, navigated complex hell politics. It all implies a high degree of strategic thinking, tactical adaptability.
And the analysis contrasts that with Kaguya.
Yeah, whose combat experience is debated, sometimes seen as overly reliant on just raw power, or needing guidance from Black Zetsu against new stuff.
So that potential gap in strategic depth could be really critical, especially if their raw power levels are somewhat comparable at their peak.
Could be a deciding factor, the source suggests, especially in a long fight or when unexpected things happen.
Just the difficulty of putting the other one down seems key. Both are incredibly durable, hard to kill permanently.
Absolutely. Lady Death's CL-1000 resilience versus Kaguya's God Tree regeneration, it makes the method of defeat crucial.
For Kaguya, the main way seems to be sealing or maybe disintegration like the ash bones.
Right. For Lady Death, it could be overwhelming force, maybe soul manipulation if Kaguya is vulnerable there, or that potential magic drain we talked about.
So the analysis emphasizes that, well, it could be a long slugfest.
The ability for one character to land a definitive kill shot or uniquely negate the other's core defense because of their specific power system interaction, that could be the decider.
Okay, so after weighing all of that, origins, unique powers, feats, weaknesses, the huge uncertainty of magic versus chakra, strategy, how hard they are to beat, what conclusion does the source material actually draw? What's the likely outcome according to this analysis?
Right, synthesizing all this complex stuff. The source concludes that while fully acknowledging the difficulties and the big unknowns in comparing universes like this,
It leans one way.
it suggests Lady Death appears to hold a slight edge for ultimate victory in a theoretical one-on-one fight.
A slight edge for Lady Death.
Okay.
Based on everything we've just discussed from the source, what were the main, the most heavily weighted reasons for that conclusion?
The source points to a few interconnected factors that tip the scale slightly towards Lady Death. First, the potentially higher peak destructive capacity and versatility of her omnipower.
Higher than Kaguya's truth-seeking ball.
Potentially, yeah. Based on scaling from defeating Genocide, who was galaxy level, Kaguya's ball scaled maybe star or multi-star cluster, so potentially higher peak destructive output.
And versatility.
More crucially, maybe, the analysis suggests the omnipower's adaptability, that idea she can conjure any spell within her system, might let her adapt. Conjure specific counters to Kaguya's unique abilities, her hacks, her BFR attempts.
Okay, that's one big point. What's the second?
Second, and maybe the most heavily weighted factor by the source, that magic versus chakra enigma.
Still the biggest unknown.
Absolutely, that fundamental question. Can Kaguya's absorption and defenses actually stop or even interact with chaos? Magic from a totally different reality. If the answer is no, as the source considers possible,
then Lady Death's magic bypasses those defenses.
giving her a significant, maybe insurmountable advantage.
Okay, and the final piece, that strategic difference.
Yes. The source posits that Lady Death's background conqueror, ruler of hell, navigating complex politics and war, suggests a higher degree of tactical cunning, adaptability.
Compared to Kaguya, whose strategic depth is debated, may be reliant on guidance.
Exactly. That potentially superior strategic mind could let Lady Death exploit openings or figure out how to deal with unknown factors during the fight.
Got it. So, potential for higher destructive power and adaptability via omnipower, the critical uncertainty about Kaguya negating magic, and Lady Death's potential strategic edge.
Yeah.
Those are the main things leading the source to give Lady Death that slight edge.
Correct. And the analysis makes it really clear that the interaction between these fundamentally different power systems, especially magic from outside a nature-based system like chakra, that's the central mystery that could ultimately decide everything.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into a pretty wild hypothetical cosmic clash, all based on the analysis we looked at. We journeyed through the source's take on Lady Death's infernal origins, her huge omnipower, those cosmic scale feats.
And her potential vulnerabilities, yeah, tied to her origin or maybe her power system itself.
And then we explored Ōtsutsuki, her celestial background, chakra mastery, god-tier abilities like Manaka, and those terrifying all-killing ash bones.
And discuss the flaws the source identifies. Susceptibility to sealing, that debated tactical skill.
We synthesized how the source compared them, looked at how their unique hacks might clash, grappled with that huge unknown magic versus chakra.
Considered dimensional warfare, lethal attacks, mental resistance, strategy, and just how darn hard it would be for either one to actually beat the other.
And we landed on the source's conclusion. Based on this analysis, Lady Death seems to hold a slight edge, primarily due to omnipower's potential scale and versatility, the huge question mark over magic negation, and maybe that strategic advantage.
It really does all circle back to that central enigma the source highlighted. How would chaos magic truly interact with Naruto's chakra system? That fundamental uncertainty is the absolute linchpin of this whole analysis.
And remember, audience, this was one analysis, based on specific interpretations of lore from two vastly different fictional universes. Cross-universal comparisons are always full of those fascinating what-ifs.
Absolutely. It's fun to think about, but definitive answers are pretty much impossible.
It does raise a cool question for you to ponder, though. In clashes like this, between universes with totally different rules, different physics, different power systems, what tends to be the deciding factor? Is it sheer overwhelming power and experience?
Or is it those unique system-specific abilities and vulnerabilities, the weird hackic stuff? What aspect of this comparison stands out most to you?
We'll leave you with that thought to chew on.
Definitely something to think about.
Remember, you're awesome. Never let the world tell you otherwise. Stay safe.
Stay sane.